The night was heavy with silence, and in that silence lived every hope, every fear, and every unanswered question. Demet sat by her phone, her eyes locked on the screen, the glow of the device casting shadows on her tired face. She had told herself she wouldn't wait, that she wouldn't let one more night pass in this restless agony. But the truth was, when someone like Can Yaman carries your heart in his hands, you can't just turn off the feelings as if they were a switch. That day had already been complicated. Their paths had crossed again in public, almost by accident, and for a brief moment, the whole world had stopped. Cameras caught their glances, fans screamed, and yet, behind that public mask, there was a storm raging inside both of them. Demet had smiled politely, but deep down, she had felt the familiar ache, the same ache she had carried for years since their story unraveled. Can, on the other hand, had managed to hide behind his signature charm, his powerful presence commanding the space. But those who knew him best could see the cracks, could sense that something within him was on the verge of breaking. When night fell, Demet's heart whispered only one thing: he will message me. He has to. Every buzz of her phone made her heart leap. Every minute that passed without his name lighting up the screen cut a little deeper. She poured herself a glass of water, then another. She walked around her apartment, trying to distract herself with anything: music, TV, even flipping through old scripts. But the truth followed her everywhere. She wanted his words, his voice, his presence in a simple line of text. Meanwhile, Ken was alone in his own silence. He too stared at his phone, his fingers tracing over her number, his mind replaying their last real conversation. He remembered the way she had looked at him, the way her voice trembled when she said, "Just don't disappear this time." Those words haunted him. He wanted to type, to break the wall of pride and fear that kept him from reaching out. But every time he started, he erased it. His chest felt tight, his eyes burned with the weight of unspoken emotions. The man who looked so unshakable on television, so confident on red carpets, was now just a man broken by love and regret. By midnight, Demet's hope began to flicker. She lay on the couch, still clutching her phone, as if holding it tightly would summon him somehow. But no message arrived. She whispered to herself, maybe tomorrow, yet even as she said it, she knew the truth. Tomorrow had come before. Tomorrow had passed many times. And every time, she had been left waiting. Ken sat in the dark of his room, the city lights outside his window blurring through his tears. He pressed the phone to his forehead, whispering words only the walls could hear. Why can't I just say it? Why can't I tell her what she means? His heart was breaking, not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much. And that care had become a prison. As dawn approached, two people who had once shared laughter, passion, and dreams now shared something else: silence. A silence filled with everything unsaid. For Demet, it was the silence of waiting for a message that never came. For Can, it was the silence of a man collapsing under the weight of his own choices. And for both of them, it was the silence that echoed louder than any words could. The morning light didn't bring peace. For Demet, it only highlighted the exhaustion in her eyes and the hollowness in her chest. She stared at her phone one last time before tossing it aside, almost angry at herself for hoping. "Why do I do this to myself?" she whispered, but even the empty walls had no answer. She made coffee, but it tasted bitter, not because of the beans but because of the emptiness that had settled deep within her. Every detail of her apartment seemed to mock her. The photos on the shelf, smiles from another life, another chapter. The scripts lying on the table, characters who lived, loved, and lost, just as she had. Even the city outside, with its noise and chaos, felt like it was moving forward while she stood still, caught in an endless loop of waiting for something that might never come. Across town, Ken hadn't slept at all. He had paced the floors of his apartment, replaying the night in his mind. He thought about typing, about writing her just one line, "I miss you." But the fear of rejection clawed at him. The fear that his message might not heal but reopen wounds. And so, he chose silence. A silence that tore him apart more than any harsh reply ever could. Can's friends had noticed the change in him. He no longer laughed as easily, no longer carried the same fire in his eyes. He went through the motions, meetings, photo shoots, interviews, but his heart wasn't there. Behind the cameras, behind the carefully constructed image, there was a man breaking down piece by piece. Fame had given him the world, but love, or the absence of it, had left him empty. Demet, too, tried to carry on. She had an interview scheduled that afternoon, and she forced herself into her professional mask. Cameras flashed, questions flew, and she answered with practiced ease. But those who knew her well could see it, the slight hesitation in her voice, the faraway look in her eyes whenever his name was mentioned. Fans cheered, headlines praised her elegance, but inside, she was crumbling. That evening, when she returned home, the cycle repeated. The phone lay silent, untouched, as if mocking her hope. She sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker, and wondered if he was out there, watching them too. Does he ever think of me the way I think of him? She asked herself, knowing the answer but refusing to accept it. And Can? He was thinking of her. Every moment, every hour. He remembered her laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she was truly happy, the way she believed in him when no one else did. He thought about the promises they made, the dreams they once shared. But more than anything, he thought about the silence he had chosen. The silence that now felt like the loudest scream. By midnight, their worlds once again mirrored each other. Demet sat in her apartment, waiting but pretending not to. Can sat in his, breaking down but pretending to be strong. Two people, so close yet so far, bound together by a love that neither could fully let go of, and a silence that neither could escape. For Demet, the unanswered message became a symbol of all the times she had been left waiting, of all the words unsaid. For Can, the untyped reply became his prison. A prison built not of walls, but of pride, fear, and regret. And so, as the night stretched on, one truth became clear: sometimes the words we never send are the ones that haunt us forever. The days that followed turned into a cruel routine. Demet tried to convince herself that she was fine, that she had grown past the point of waiting for someone else to complete her. She filled her calendar with work, new projects, meetings, and rehearsals. Her team admired her dedication, but they didn't see the truth. They didn't see the way she rushed home at night, hoping against reason that maybe this time her phone would light up. At night, the silence was unbearable. She would scroll through old photos, moments when they were inseparable, when laughter came easily, when love wasn't complicated. In those pictures, they were not celebrities, not public figures constantly under scrutiny. They were just two people in love. And that memory was both her comfort and her torment. Can, meanwhile, was living in a storm of his own making. His career was soaring, offers from Italy, magazine covers, opportunities that most actors could only dream of. And yet, he found no joy in them. Every time he walked onto a set, he felt the hollowness in his chest. Every time fans screamed his name, he felt the weight of the one voice he longed to hear but couldn't. He often replayed their last goodbye in his head. It hadn't even been a real goodbye, not the kind with closure. It was abrupt, sharp, a mix of pride and pain on both sides. He had walked away, telling himself it was for the best, that they needed distance. But now, in the quiet moments, he wondered if that was the biggest mistake of his life. Demet wasn't blind to the headlines. She saw the photos of him at events, smiling, surrounded by people. She read the stories of his rumored romances, the endless speculation about his private life. And every time she saw his face, it felt like a dagger twisted deeper. How can he look so happy while I'm here waiting, she thought. But deep down, she knew the truth. Those smiles were for the cameras, not for his heart. One evening, she met with a close friend. Over coffee, the friend asked gently, "Why do you still wait for him? You deserve someone who chooses you without hesitation." Demet smiled, but her eyes filled with tears. "Because it wasn't just love," she said softly. "It was everything. He was my best friend, my partner in crime, my safe place. You don't just let go of that." At the same time, Can confided in his own confidant. Sitting in a quiet bar away from the crowds, he finally admitted aloud what he couldn't bring himself to type in a message: I miss her. Every day. But I don't know how to go back. What if I've lost her forever? His voice cracked as he said it, the weight of years pressing down on him. The tragedy wasn't that they didn't love each other. It was that their pride, their fear, and the chaos of their public lives kept them apart. Two hearts beating for one another, yet trapped on opposite sides of silence. That night, once again, Demet lay awake, the phone on her pillow. She stared at it until her eyes burned, until exhaustion finally pulled her into restless sleep. And Can, sitting in the dark of his apartment, typed out the words, I can't stop thinking about you. His thumb hovered over the send button, his heart pounding in his chest. For a split second, he almost did it. Almost. Then, with a heavy sigh, he deleted the message. The screen went black. The silence returned. And somewhere across the city, Demet turned in her sleep, her hand brushing against the phone she wished would finally bring her the words she longed to hear. The tension between silence and confession grew heavier with each passing night. For Demet, every morning began with the same ritual. She unlocked her phone, scanned her notifications, and sighed at the absence of his name. It wasn't that she expected a miracle anymore, she knew better, but hope has a way of lingering long after logic tells you to let go. Her work became her armor. She immersed herself in scripts, memorized lines, and forced herself to smile under the harsh lights of interviews. And yet, even the strongest mask began to crack. One evening, during a live talk show, when the host casually asked about love, her voice trembled just slightly before she steadied it. Millions of viewers might not have noticed, but those who truly knew her did. The weight of her silence spoke louder than words. On the other side, Can was unraveling. His career demanded perfection, demanded the image of strength and confidence. But inside, he was breaking down. Nights found him pacing his apartment, torn between pride and desperation. He wanted to reach out, to tell her that he hadn't forgotten, that every moment without her was a fight against himself. But he also feared that too much time had passed, that his silence had already spoken for him. One night, unable to bear it any longer, Can drove aimlessly through the city. Streets blurred into one another, neon lights reflecting off the windshield as his mind replayed their story like an endless reel. He parked outside a familiar street, the one near Demet's old apartment. He didn't go in. He didn't call. He just sat there, staring at the dark windows, whispering, I'm sorry. His chest tightened as tears welled in his eyes. For the man admired by millions, this was the side no one ever saw, the broken heart hiding behind the fame. Demet, that same night, stood on her balcony, the cool air brushing against her skin. She closed her eyes and imagined the sound of his voice, the way he used to call her name, the way he made the world feel safe. She whispered into the night, why can't you just say it? Why can't you be here? Her words dissolved into the silence, carried away by the wind. The cruel irony was that both of them were speaking to each other in their hearts, yet neither could cross the distance of pride and fear. Demet feared being hurt again. Can feared being rejected, feared that his silence had already destroyed the bridge between them. And so, both remained prisoners of their own emotions. In the following days, rumors began to swirl. The press speculated about new romances, about mysterious dinners and supposed flings. Demet brushed them off with practiced grace, but inside, each headline stung. Can dismissed them too, but the weight of public speculation only added to his torment. He longed to shout the truth, that no one else mattered, that no one else could replace her. But instead, he smiled for the cameras and died a little inside. One night, as Demet scrolled through her phone in bed, her eyes landed on their old conversations. She read them like sacred texts, each word a reminder of what once was. She hovered over his name, her finger trembling over the call button. Her heart raced. For a moment, she almost pressed it. Almost. But then fear won. She locked the phone and set it down, her chest aching with regret. At the same time, Can sat in his room, typing another message. I waited too long. I'm sorry. But he stopped. His hand shook. And once again, he erased it. The night stretched on, filled with silence louder than any storm. Two hearts, beating for each other, yet bound by chains of pride and fear. And as dawn crept in, neither had sent the message that could have changed everything. The night had once again swallowed the city, its silence broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the ticking of clocks that seemed to mock the waiting hearts. Demet sat on her couch, her phone resting in her hand like a fragile promise. Her thumb traced over his name on the screen. The temptation to call him, to finally break the silence, was overwhelming. But every time she tried, the weight of unanswered nights pulled her back. If he cared, he would have reached out by now, she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of resignation. Tears filled her eyes, not from anger but from exhaustion. She was tired of being strong, tired of pretending that his silence didn't matter. The truth was, it mattered more than anything. It was the silence that broke her, not the words. Because at least words, no matter how painful, meant connection. Silence meant abandonment. Across the city, Can sat in his dimly lit apartment, his phone glowing in the darkness. He had written and erased a dozen messages that night. Each time, the words had felt right, but fear stopped him. Fear that it was too late, that his silence had already spoken louder than any apology could. His chest tightened as he whispered to himself, I waited for her too. I waited for her to forgive me. And then, in a rare moment of weakness, he allowed himself to cry. The tears he had hidden from the world poured out, unstoppable, as years of regret and longing collapsed onto him. The man the world saw as invincible was, in truth, a man broken by his own heart. He pressed the phone to his forehead, whispering, Why didn't I just send it? Why did I let pride destroy us? That same night, Demet finally set her phone down on the table. She curled up under her blanket, whispering to herself, I can't wait anymore. Her heart ached, but somewhere deep inside, a small voice told her this was the only way to survive, to let go of waiting, to stop expecting what would never come. Sleep eventually claimed her, though it was filled with dreams of moments they once shared. Can, however, didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, replaying their story over and over. The laughter, the stolen glances, the warmth of her hand in his, the promises whispered in the dark. And then, the silence. He realized too late that it wasn't fate or distance that had broken them. It was his own hesitation, his own refusal to send the words that lived in his heart. As dawn broke, Demet awoke with swollen eyes, her phone still silent on the table. She looked at it one last time before turning away, whispering, I deserve peace. And somewhere else in the city, Can finally typed the message. Just 6 words, I can't lose you again, Demet. His hand shook as he stared at the screen. This was it, the message that could change everything. His thumb hovered over the send button, his heart pounding. But then, the fear returned. What if she didn't answer? What if she had already moved on? With trembling fingers, he deleted the words. The screen went black, leaving only his reflection. Tear-streaked, broken, and full of regret. That morning, Demet stepped outside, determined to face the world with strength. She didn't know that across the city, Can sat alone in his apartment, breaking down in silence. She didn't know how many times he had almost reached out. All she knew was that she had waited all night for a message that never came. And he, in turn, would spend countless nights haunted by the same truth, that sometimes the greatest tragedies aren't the words we say, but the words we never send. The city outside moved on, cars rushing, people laughing, life continuing as if nothing had happened. But for them, time stood still. For Demet, it was the silence of unanswered waiting. For Can, it was the silence of a man collapsing under the weight of his own choices. And so, their story ended not with closure, not with reconciliation, but with the silence that broke them both.